mentioned, we have two talks, both by early career researchers. Up first, we have Anshu, who is at the, now I forget what the acronym stands for, something
The
science.
Indian Institute of Science Education and Research.
Okay, excellent. And she's a PhD student, who I guess you're in your final year now, soon to defend, a couple months by the looks of things. And so we're very excited to hear about your work on homotopy stable ranks. These are algebras. Great.
No.
Yep. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Anshu. I would like to thank Karen for this opportunity. This talk is based on my research work with my PhD advisor, Prahlad Vaidyanathan, in IISER Bhopal. So, what we're going to talk about is homotopical stable ranks of C-star algebras. The goal of my talk is to give an estimate for homotopical stable ranks when the C-star algebras are either CX algebras or cross-product C-star algebras by finite groups. So, let me just first give a little bit of overview of the talk.
That was unusual.
So, what I do first is I'll define the notion of homotopical stable ranks for C-star algebras. Then I'll move on to the CX algebras. Then we'll give an estimate of homotopical stable ranks for CX algebras when X is a finite dimensional compact metric space. Then we'll see what is the corrected stable rank of group C-star algebras for the group, Heisenberg group, as an application of the previous estimates. Then in the end, we'll talk about the homotopical stable ranks of cross-product C-star algebras by finite groups and when the action alpha has the rotating property. So I can't see the chat here, so if there are any questions, stop me. Okay, so
Yeah, I'll the chat for you as well.
These ranks were first defined by Riefel. He defined a few of them, but we'll focus on two of these ranks, which are namely general stable rank and connected stable rank. These two ranks have the property that they are homotopy invariant. Hence, they're collectively named called as homotopical stable ranks. Now, before defining the general stable rank, let me just give the small definition. So, for a C-star algebra A, a finitely generated module P is said to be projective. If there is another module Q such that if we consider the direct sum of P plus P and Q, then we get AN for some N. So every finitely generated projective module is a direct summand of a free module. Now we consider we are interested in the following question. So given a C-star algebra A and a projective module P of this particular type. So we are considering all those projective modules such that if you take a copy of A and add it to P, then we get AN. These modules are also called stably free. Now, the question is when this happens, when can we conclude that P is isomorphic to AN minus 1? So in other words, we want to consider that what is the condition on the C-star algebra such that all stably free modules becomes free. So, and the general stable rank just picks up that number. So given a C-star algebra A, general stable rank is the least integer n such that for any projective module with the property that P plus A is AM, it happens that P is isomorphic to AM minus 1. And this should happen for all m bigger than this number n. Now, for this particular reason, we want to avoid all those C-star algebras which does not have the invariant basis number property. So we'll consider only those C-star algebras which have the property that if AM is isomorphic to AN, then M is equal to N. So what happens is that if A does not have this invariant basis number property, then the GSR will be infinite. So we want to exclude those cases. Now, I want to define the connected stable rank, but before that, I want to give another definition for the general stable rank, which will include the unimodular vector. For a given C star algebra A, and for any number n, what we do is we collect all the elements in An such that there is another element B1 up to Bn, such that if you consider Pi Ai and sum over I up to n, then we get the unit element in the C star algebra A. So we collect all these tuples with this property and call the set LGN of A.
I'm sorry.
Now,
I've only. Hello. So, Anshu, just a quick question. What is, to go back, when you had these two free modules that were isomorphic? Yeah, this invariant basis number property. What's an example of something that doesn't satisfy this?
so there are many C star algebras. So if you take BH, that should have this property.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I think that's your
I think BH should have this property.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I'll get back to you if that's not the correct example.
Yeah, no problem. So, but somehow, like, sorry for a non-expert, the idea is that they're very big. These counter examples would be so big that strange things can happen.
Yeah. There are actually there are many examples. For C star algebra, there might be very few examples, but in the ring cases, there will be many examples.
Many examples. Okay.
So the notion of these ranks come from the base table rank. So base table rank was defined for rings first, and then Riefel defined the topological stable rank, which turns out to be equal for C star algebras. And so maybe he tried to maybe tried to make some analogous statements here.
Okay, thank you.
That's my understanding.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So we defined LGN of A. Now unimodular vectors are related to projective modules in the following way.
Sure.
So
Right.
so if you take
Those projections correspond to
if we take any vector A bar in An, then A is in LGN if and only if there are some there is another projective module P such that if you consider the module generated by the element A, then we get An, and you add it to P, then you get An. Now, so all the LGN vectors are direct summands of An in this particular way. Now, conversely, what happens is that any finitely generated projective module P, from any finitely generated projective module P, we can recover the element A bar. So if there was some projective module such that there is an isomorphism, so what we do is consider the image of P plus 0 under this map F and take the image of 0, 1 under this map again. Then this A bar is the LGN vector and Q is isomorphic to. So Q plus A will be equal to An. Now, so the original question was the following. The original question was that if P is of the property that P plus A is isomorphic to Am, we want to consider when is P isomorphic to Am minus 1. So this question translates to the following question for LGN vectors. So we just need to consider all those LGN vectors such that P plus AA is isomorphic to Am. Then when is this true that P becomes isomorphic to Am minus 1? So as it turns out that if we are given an LGN vector, then so if we are given an LGN vector, then which means that there is a P such that P plus A bar is Am, then P is isomorphic to Am minus 1 if and only if there is a element T in GLM A which takes A bar to Em. So this is just one particular type. So if P takes A bar to just some vector which was non-zero at just one point and everywhere else is 0, then that would also work. Non-zero means 1. So this gives us the motivation for the other definition of GSR, which is the following. The general stable rank of A is the least integer n such that GLM A acts transitively on LGM for all m bigger than equal to this number n. Now, where this action is just the usual matrix multiplication. So now let's move on to the definition of connected stable rank. So GLM is just the collection of all elements in MM such that T is invertible. Now consider all those elements in GLM which are connected to the identity element in GLM and call it GLM0. This is a normal subgroup of GLM and GLM acts on LGM, so GLM0 will act on LGM. So the connected stable rank is the least integer n such that GLM0 acts transitively on LGM, and this should happen for all m bigger than equal to this number n. Equivalently, the other definition for GLM0 CSR is that if LGM is connected for all m bigger than equal to n. How this definition comes from this is that you collect LGM. Now there are paths in GLM. Since GLM0 is acting on the LGM, then what will happen is that if we take any two elements, those comes out to be path connected since GLM0 was connected and the action is transitive. So GLM A becomes connected. Now, this was all the cases when C-star algebras were united. Now, for any non-unitive C-star algebra, the GSR is defined as the GSR of the unitization of A, which is A tilde. Similarly, CSR of A is again defined as the CSR of A tilde. So, from now on, we'll assume that all C-star algebras are united. So, let's see some properties of GSR. By the definition, it's evident that GSR of A will be smaller than CSR of A. Now, if we take any two C-star algebras A and B, then GSR of A plus B will be equal to the maximum of the individual GSRs. Now, if we consider matrix algebra M and A, then the GSR of M and A will be bounded by 1 by n GSR of A minus 1 plus 1. In particular, if GSR of A was 1, then GSR of M and A will also be 1. Now, the next example is if we have a short exact sequence of C-star algebras, then the GSR of A will be bounded by the GSR of J and the CSR of B. In the case of CSR, the CSR of A will just be smaller than the CSR of J and CSR of B. And for CSR of M and A, we'll have a similar bound where here there will be a CSR, everything else is same. And for CSR of A plus B also, we'll get the maximum of the CSR. Now let's see some examples. So consider the C-star algebra C. Every projective C module is also vector space. So P will have a basis. So P will be isomorphic to Cn for some n. So this will imply that GSR of C is 1. So what's happening here is every projective module is just becoming free here. So GSR will be 1. Now the other extreme is BH. So if H is infinite dimensional Hilbert space, then GSR of BH is infinite. Now, if we take any commutative C-star algebra Cx, then the GSR is bounded by the scaling function of dimension of x by 2. Here we are assuming that x has a finite dimension, and dimension here means Lebesgue dimension. So Riefel proved the following result. So take a natural number n, then we can define GLNs of A, and this is also defined, and this will be a quotient C-star quotient group. So that we can define the maps Pns, where we take an element here and map it to inflate the element to A001 and take the class here. So what Riefel proved was if n was bigger than equal to CSR, then all these maps will become surjective. And if n was equal to the maximum of CSR of A and GSR of CTA, then all these maps will become isomorphism for all numbers bigger than this particular n. And in this case, K1 group of A will be isomorphic to GLN minus 1A over GLN minus 1 0. Now, what happens when these ranks are very small? If GSR of A is 1, then we can prove that A is stably finite. And if CSR of A is 1, then K1 of A is 0. So since GSR is always smaller than CSR, so CSR 1 will also imply that A is stably finite and the K1 group is 0. Now let's move on to the definition of CX algebra. So for a compact Hausdorff space X, a C star algebra A is said to be a CX algebra if there is a unital star homomorphism P from CX to the center of A. Now, so if A was non-unital, we need to have here the multiplier algebra. And these are also defined for locally compact Hausdorff spaces. In that case, again, we'll need multiplier algebra here. So a CX algebra can always be seen as a fiber bundle in the following sense. So let us fix the point X in X, then consider the ideal IX, which is the collection of functions in CX which are vanishing at the X. Then this is an ideal, and take the quotient of this A over IX A, then this is again a C star algebra. Now, then what happens is that from A to AX, there is a natural quotient map. And for each A here, we just denote the image here by AX. Then for each A in A, we can define the following map, which takes the element X from here and map it to the norm of AX. It turns out that for any CX algebra, this map is always upper semi-continuous, and it happens for all elements of A. Now we are interested in the following problem. We are interested in calculating the connected stable rank of A when A is a CX algebra and X is a compact metric space with finite dimension. So the natural expectation is that CSR of A should depend on the dimension of X, CSR of the fibers, and maybe some more numbers which again depend on the dimension of X. The similar expectation makes sense for GSR of A. So we were able to prove the following result. If A is a CX algebra, when X is an n-dimensional compact metric space, then CSR of A is bounded by the supremum of all the CSR of the CTN tensor AX, and X is varying on the space X. Now, for when the space is zero dimensional, then we were able to prove that prove the same result for all the spaces. So the metric space was not necessary. We just needed compact Hausdorff topological space. So the proof here heavily depended on the fact that when there is this covering dimension is finite, then we can have every point to be in. So for each for the space X, we can cover this. We can find a cover such that each point will lie in maximum of n plus 1 number of those cover sets. I hope I'm making sense. So we tried to prove the same result for GSR also, but it turned out that we needed an extra condition, which is that for each fiber we needed to have the K1 group to be 0. Then we were able to prove the similar result. Now, if we consider the Heisenberg group, which is the collection of all this type of matrices, and the entries ABC are coming from the integer, which is again, the H3 can also be understood as the extension like this. Then by a theorem of Packer and Raven, C star H3 can be realized as a CT algebra with A theta as the fibers, and then CSR of C star H3 turns out to be less than equal to 3, and therefore K1 of C star H3 will be isomorphic to the GU2 over GU2 0 of the C star H3. So this is coming from the refills result. Now we were able to prove a little bit more than just this, which is the following. So if G is a discrete group that is of the that is a central extension of the following form, where N is a finitely generated abelian group of rank N, and Q is a free abelian group of rank N, then CSR of C star G was bounded by the sum of these both ranks and the ceiling function of that by 2 plus 1. Now let's talk about cross products. So can we compute, the next question was that can we compute the GSR in terms of A cross G, of this GSR of A, and maybe we can compute the CSR of A cross G again in terms of CSR of A. And in order to do that, maybe we can put some restrictions on alpha to get some nice bounds. Now, there were some previous results which involved TSR of A. So there was this previous result by Osaka. It says that CSR of A cross G is bounded by TSR of A plus order of G minus 1. There were no results which involved GSR and CSR. So that's what we wanted to do. So let me just say what is a Rockling property. So an action alpha of G on A, where G is a finite group and A is a unital separable C star algebra, then alpha is said to be having the Rockling property if for every finite set of A and every epsilon, there is a set of mutually orthogonal projections indexed by G, and this set is in A, such that if we take the sum of all the projections, then we get 1, the element 1 in A, and the action alpha moves around the projections nicely. So if we take any projection EH from this set, then alpha G applied on EH is just EGH, and this should happen for all elements G and H in G. And if we take any element from the set F and we consider EGA minus AEG, then they should not be moving a lot. And so what it means is it's almost commutative. So these two sets are almost commutative in the C star algebra A, and this should happen for all G in G and all elements A in F. Now, the trivial action is not Rockling. So if it were Rockling, then what happens is that what should happen is that identity G inverse of EG should have been equal to EG inverse G, which would give us EG0, where G0 is the identity element of the group. But since this is a trivial action, this is just equal to EG. So the trivial action is not Rockling. Now, let's see one example of the action which is Rockling. So let's B is a C star algebra A. Let B is a C star algebra. Then the left translation action, which is defined by the following. Take an element S from here, then alpha S will take the function f from CGB, and at the point X, it will take the value f of S inverse X. And then what we want to do is that for any finite set F and an epsilon, we want to consider some set of projections. So take any finite set and take any epsilon and consider the set of projections. So consider this function where EG is taking value 1 when G is equal to H and it's 0 otherwise. Then this set will work as the set of mutually orthogonal projections like what we wanted previously. Then this action is always Rockling. So we were able to prove the following results. So if alpha is an action on A, where again G is a finite group, A is a separable unital C-star algebra. Then GSR of A cross G was bounded by GSR of A minus 1 over order of G ceiling function plus 1. Now this bound is similar as what we have had in the case of matrix algebras. In the matrix algebra cases, what was true is that GSR of M and A was smaller than G1 by N, GSR of A minus 1 over N plus 1. So we are getting a similar result for cross products with the action to be Rockling, and we get a similar result for CSR also. Now what it proves is that if CSR of A is 1 or if GSR of A is 1, then the same will be true for the cross product also. So it's a known result before that if if the topological stable rank of A is 1, then the cross product will also have the topological stable rank 1 if we are given an action which is Rockling. But these bounds are dependent on the action alpha. So if we take some action which is not Rockling and we consider the following C-star algebra. So Blackadder constructed an action of Z2 on the UHF algebra, which is of pi to 2 infinity, such that that action is not Rockling and CSR was 2 of this cross product. But CSR of A was 1. So if our bounds were to be held for any action, then CSR of A cross Z2 should have been 1. But it's not the case. So this action was Tracier Rockling, had the Tracier Rockling property, and this was proved by Phillips. So Phillips proved that this action had Tracier Rockling property, and it was not Rockling. And it turns out that this example served a purpose for the counterexample for our result. So this cross product does not satisfy our estimate, and hence we can conclude that the previous bounds will not work for more general actions. So the future directions can be the following. What we considered was just finite groups.
Sorry, I want to ask you a question. So is your result is clear for finite Rockling dimension?
No. That's what I want. I am working on, Abhi. That's what I'm working on now. So finite Rockling dimension is what the case. So I mentioned here also. That's what we are looking for now.
Oh, I see. And one other question, I think that I should have asked this question earlier. So GSR of full corner of CSR algebra, is it known? Because you didn't say anything, but there is nice relation for a stable rank of full corner of the CSR algebra in terms of Rayfall definition. How about your definition?
I'm not aware of that.
Oh.
I'll have a look and get back to you. I'm not aware.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the future directions are, this actually opens a lot of questions. So one way is that if you lose the finiteness and take compact groups and actions with Rockling property, these homotopical stable ranks are not known for cross products when the group is not finite and compact and action has Rockling property. And the other one is that keep the finiteness of the group and maybe take actions with other property, maybe Tracier Rockling property, and maybe other higher dimensional Rockling properties, which are again Rockling dimensions. So this is what we're working on now. Here are some references. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Anshu. That was a really great talk. I will open it up to further questions. If we have any in the audience, please just go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to ask.
So would you please get back to the several previous slides related
Which
to
one?
GSR of the cross product when alpha has the Rochlin property?
This one?
Yes.
This one?
So
Okay.
yeah, exactly. So I think that if you figure out sort of nice relation for the full corner of C-star algebra in this theorem, you can also prove some interesting result about the fixed point algebra.
So we proved it for fixed point algebra.
Oh,
In
you had it
the
already.
process of in the
I see.
process of proving this result, we proved it for fixed point algebra. But the action was Rochlin property.
Is
Had
is
to have this property.
when algebra is it the same as this? Is the estimate the same for the fixed point or?
Yeah. So what happens is that if the action alpha is Rochlin, and then what happens is that GSR of A alpha would be smaller than GSR of A.
All right. Any other questions in the
And
audience?
the same bound head, is the similar result is for CSR also. It's for both of those.
Mhm. So actually,
So and about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that Ali actually asked all the questions I had written down, which is basically what happens for more general groups, or if you don't necessarily have the Rocklin property, but rather things like tracial Rocklin property or maybe Rocklin dimension. Is that way you don't need to, I mean, somehow your C-star algebras can be more general for those sorts of actions, which is kind
Yeah.
of,
So for CX algebras also, there is no result for locally compact case.
Mhm.
And there is no result for topological stable rank either.
Yeah, but I think that for the tracial version, I think that something is known in the work of Osaka and someone else I can remember. So their paper is already on the archive, as far as I
I'm not
remember.
aware. Can you send me the link?
Yeah.
Maybe tell me the title of the paper. I'll have a
Sure.
look.
Yeah. So, but in the proof of this theorem, you already said you didn't consider the GSR of the corner, because you know. So I mean that because I always, when I, for example, when we have for example, an action of finite group with Rocklin property, I always estimate the cross product with Mn of A, and then you know, so and then for the cross product is isomorphic to the full corner. That's why I asked this question, actually. Yeah.
So what we did was it used some approximation arguments.
Yeah.
So if I had more time, I would have written the proof. And I also, so there was another result when alpha is not Rocklin. And so there was, I didn't mention that result. The CSR of A cross G is bounded by the order of G when alpha is not Rocklin. So that, but that happens only in the case when topological stable rank of A is 1. So that's what we were able to prove.
I guess these definitions can be made more generally for rings rather just, or at least algebra rather than pure algebras.
These ranks were for Banach algebras.
Oh, for
In
Banach.
the original paper of Rayfield, he defined it for Banach algebras.
I see. So you do need the algebra to be complete in some sense before you can calculate them.
Base, as far as I know, base table rank is 4 rings.
Okay. So okay.
So it is very old. It was defined by him in Weiss. I think I'm pronouncing it name correctly. I hope.
But now, if you go back a few slides also, you had this result that was only for when K0, oh, this was the C of X algebras maybe with K0 of A.
Yes.
Why it has to be 0?
So why, so these proofs depended on, one is the dimension of the space X. So one important fact was that we wanted to propagate the property in a neighborhood.
Mhm.
So for that, we use the upper semi-continuity. The other one was that, so what you do, what you want to do is that, so if you consider an interval, it's one dimension. But when you get a cover, there will be at least one point where the cover will intersect. So we get a pullback diagram. And so pullback was A0, A here, and then A0 half. Suppose 0 half and half 1 is the cover. Then it will look like A0 half, and then here it will be A half 1, and here it will be just 1 point. So this estimate depended on that pullback diagram. So we wanted to lift these elements from here. So if this is the last corner, if this was the last corner and we wanted to lift from, so we had some element J in JLM 0 or in GLM, we wanted to lift these elements through that pullback diagram. But to lift that element, in some cases, we had to put this condition in the GSR test. So GLM 0 can be lifted, any element in GLM 0 can be lifted, but the element in GLM is difficult to lift because we don't know the invertible element to lift to an invertible element or not. It can lift to any element which is not invertible. So it was easy to do in CSR case and not in the GSR case.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, do we have any other quick questions before we get to our next speaker set up? If not, let's give Anshu another round of virtual applause.
So much.
Thank you for the great talk.
And then, yeah, Anshu, if you don't mind, unshare